Good morning and welcome to another episode of Daybreak on Trust TV. Today is the second day in the month of June 2022 and you are highly welcome to the show. I'm Dasha and Hussein Al-Usman. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm not alone as usual.
It's a pleasure to be here with you, of course, coming out as though we are going for some Ashrabi. I am Sunday Michael. Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you join us.
So I think this is the first time we're doing this together.
Yes, since the revert format took effect. I know the producers asked me this morning that who are you pairing with, and I was saying to them, I don't know. Maybe the person shows up. Good to have you in the studio joining us.
Good to have you as well.
It's the month of June, the half-year month, more or less.
A lot of people are actually hopeful that this month will bring a lot of goodies, you know.
We can't wait.
Away from all the hardship from January. It's been 6 months of a lot of
trauma.
For a lot of people.
One fuel queue that never went away for nearly 2 months.
Exactly, and then it's back again.
And then we went into outage. Cost of gas. Almost now it's about 9,400 for 12 kg, from a battery 4,000. I mean, it's
and then there's no power, the way you actually get power is like they're giving it to you, so you don't feel like, there's no energy at all.
So that they can justify the estimated
Exactly.
the estimated billing at the end of the month. It's been 6 months of serious hardship. We hope and pray. As some people write in their status, they say, please, June, be fair.
Be fair, be kind to us.
Be kind.
All right, so today on the show, we'll be taking a look at the highlights. INEC records 10 million fresh enrollments on CVR.
Civil servant forfeits hotel, university, factory to the federal government.
And CDC reports 54 deaths from cholera between January to June 2022.
Now the news in detail. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, on Wednesday said fresh registration in the continuous voters registration exercise has hit 10.2 million. INEC, while disclosing this in its Q4 Week 7 report released in Abuja, said 6.5 million registrants have so far completed their registration. The commission said out of the people that completed their registration, about 3 million did it online, while over 3.6 million did physical registration. The gender breakdown of the registration revealed that 3.25 million were males, while 3.29 million were females, of which 53,663 were persons with disabilities and over 4.5 million were youth.
And away from that, a federal high court sitting in Abuja has ordered the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission to seize a university linked to former Federal Director of Accountants and the Federal Ministry of Health, Anthony Hassan. The court ordered seizure of Nok University, Kaduna, and other properties linked to the former director. Justice Zainab Abubakar, the presiding judge, gave the order, saying proceeds of unlawful activities were traced to its owner. Hassan, who was a DFA in the Ministry of Health between 2016 and 2019, allegedly built the university through fraudulent means. Fiscal assets of the university forfeited include Senate Building, ICT Building, Faculty of Medicine Building, Science Deanery Building, 2 academic buildings, a faculty hall, and other buildings.
Interesting. The Nigerian Center for Disease Control, NCDC, says no fewer than 54 persons have died of cholera disease in the country. In its latest report on the outbreak of the disease, the NCDC stated that the deaths were recorded between January 1 and May 1, 2022. It added that over 1,800 suspected cases were reported in 77 local government areas across 16 states of the country. The states include Abia, Adamawa, Akwa Ibom, Bauchi, Bayelsa, Borno, Cross River, and Katsina. Others are Kebbi, Kwara, Lagos, Nasarawa, Ondo, Rivers, Taraba, and Zamfara states. According to the health agency, 12 local government areas across 6 states reported more than 30 cases each this year. This comprised 5 in Rivers, 3 in Taraba, as well as 1 each in Bayelsa, Katsina, Kebbi, and Rivers states.
Now, first it was the COVID-19, statistics, and now it's cholera, and a lot of people actually talking about monkeypox.
I mean, part of all of the things we have had to deal with in this first year. I hope the monkeypox thing does not become it looks horrible when I saw the pictures.
Hopefully, the NCDC has actually said that 1 death has been recorded in Nigeria so far. Yeah. So hopefully it's not, as fatal as the COVID-19 or every other fatal disease out there.
But terrible. The look, the irritation on the skin is terrible. Yeah. I mean, it's one that can even make people stigmatize you.
Exactly.
Exactly. Unlike other types where you may have it and it doesn't necessarily...
Like the chicken pox?
Yes, like the chicken pox, yes, like the chicken pox. I hope we're not seeing sufficient education on how it comes about or what...
a lot of enlightenment, we're just hearing, statistics in different countries.
Of infections and all of that. We hope that we will get ahead of the disease, provide sufficient, and good 18 Nigerians have not somehow have continued to live with the idea of putting on a nose mask even when there is a public instruction that you can move
around without.
Yeah. I hope they give us this education so that people can also integrate it into their personal hygiene and well-being.
It's part of the hope. It's June, so it's a month of hope.
Hope indeed.
All right, so moving on, delegates participating in the primary elections being conducted by different political parties at different levels are now seen as celebrities in Nigeria. Now, this is due to the narrative that huge sums of money are exchanging hands during the primary elections. In this report, a cross-section of Kaduna residents bear their minds on the narrative. Take a look.
The belief that primary election delegates are the latest millionaires in town is voiced in all nooks and crannies of the Nigerian states. Here in Kaduna, the story is the same. On social media, it is trending as the status of some delegates have changed overnight. A video surfaced online where a man believed to be a delegate just bought a new car. In the video, he is being praised, while a voice is heard saying in Nigerian's pidgin English, "Delegate Sweeto." Trust TV is yet to verify the authenticity of the claim, but that is the belief around town this season. Today, many wish they were or are delegates because of monetary gains involved. Since no one has formally come out to verify this claim, it leaves many wondering if it is just hearsay or money indeed changed hands.
Some may see them as highly placed because of the money they got from the primaries. Some may have seen them as dangerous people because of the money that took them. And instead of doing the right thing, they sold their conscience to a wrong candidate. So to my own, I see them as betrayers.
Everybody wants to be a delegate today. That is the talk of the town. Everybody wants to be a delegate. You get my point? Even to the extent that people are ready now to buy form, if possible, to pay to become delegates. Just like what we had in the case of all these political parties where you must buy form to become delegate. So Nigerians are ready now because they've seen that you can easily make money by becoming a delegate of a particular political party.
Well, to me, delegates might not be valued after the primary election, honestly speaking, because if the masses have been allowed to, nominate who they want to represent them, it will have been a better picture entirely. It will have painted a better story.
While close allies of some delegates say the delegates are still smiling, some residents of Kaduna believe that negative consequences await them for shortchanging the destinies of millions.
Frank and honest, some, I want to believe they have never gone back to their various places because they know very well they will be haunted. Just like yesterday around my area, some people will pick either they are delegates or not, but probably they believe that is the kidnappers. They believe they may have one relation or two that must have benefited from this money.
They will be looked at differently. The masses right now are angry with the delegates because they feel the delegate did not do what they want. They didn't elect who they want. The relationship between the masses and the delegate is sour.
How credible are these delegates? Some of them whom we know, they could not even write their names. You get my point? And they determine who takes what and the direction Nigeria will go in the future elections. So it is true that, and that is why the politicians today are capitalizing on that to make sure that, because they've seen that these delegates are not credible, they can be bought. And that is exactly what is taking place today, especially in the just concluded primaries across the political parties, where you see that aspirants must pay so amount of money before delegates can be convinced to cast their vote for such candidate.
For Jacob Zango, if sanity is needed in the election process, the delegate system must be abolished.
The issue of delegates, to me, should be done away with. Let INEC think of how they will do it straight. See, when you say you want to control the flow of money politically, okay, think of how they will spend. It's not yet the general election.
As Nigeria awaits the presidential primaries of ruling APC, eyes are on APC delegates to see what plays out.
It's interesting how money has become the order of the day in our polity. I remember going into the newsroom yesterday and somebody jokingly told me that he wants to pick up a master's degree in delegate studies.
Like the other lady actually said, they might not be relevant after the primaries. So, it's a way of them to actually cash out while they can.
They have indeed cashed out.
They have.
To think of how many persons would have gone around these delegates and before settling for the highest bidder. And, they did it smartly, so you can't honestly say who did what, except for the candidate that got a single vote, which would be his own vote to himself.
That was actually the reason why the EFCC stormed the PDP primaries, one of the reasons.
But they did it in a mundane way, looking for cash in Ghana must go back when the actual transactions are taking place several days before. So, who would even go in there with a bag of dollars? Still staying with politics, presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, and former Vice President Atiku Abubakar on Wednesday received his certificate of return from the leadership of the party with a declaration that the process of rescuing and rebuilding the country has just begun. Atiku, however, reminded the party that the task ahead is enormous and members must get to work immediately for the party to secure victory. Trust TV Shafiu Suleiman has the report.
It's the fallout of his emergence as the party's presidential flag bearer at the last Saturday's convention, defeating his closest opponent, Rivers State Nyesom Wike.
I want to congratulate him and congratulate all other aspirants who participated in this event. If they didn't participate, it actually would have not been a successful event.
Atiku Abubakar is however not losing sight to the fact that there is urgent need to reach out to the aggrieved party members who are not pleased with the outcome of the just concluded convention.
Contested against me as a way to lead in that effort to unify the party so that we can face our real opponents, defeat them in the elections, and begin the process of rescuing and rebuilding this country.
Some party chieftains are however positive that the party will deploy its internal mechanisms to pacify the Southeast region, which is nursing the grudge of denying it the presidential ticket by discarding the zoning arrangement.
I'm telling you sincerely, the Southerners are not threatening anything. This is a family problem. And when you have differences in the family, they always come together to resolve it. And I am very confident that we are going to resolve.
I believe that the party will strategically sit together and find how to deal with the matter. Is there anger? There's anger. Is there unhappiness? There's unhappiness. The people that were already feeling marginalized now feel completely ignored, not just being marginalized, they're ignored.
The major opposition People's Democratic Party, PDP, lost central government to the All Progressives Congress, APC, in 2015, when it was voted out by the Nigerian electorates for failing to meet their expectations after 16 years on the saddle. Shapir Suleiman, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Well, now that, Atiku has actually gotten his certificate, a lot of people are wondering or, seem to think that he will choose his running mate. I'm trying to call a name right now. They seem to think Wike would be his running mate, by the way.
Let's see how that plays out. Going by some of the testimonials that we have seen, Wike doesn't exactly fall into that particular region where they think they need to pacify. The South Side have had their own fair share, or fair shot, if you like, at the presidency. I think the aggrieved region essentially is the Southeast. If Obi had not left,
he might have been a running mate, probably, same as last time.
He would have appeared like the most ideal candidate. So maybe a new set of shopping. But there are other considerations by the governors. They feel they have done so much to hold the parties together, and they are the major money spenders, and so they always do, whether with the PDP or any other party, would want a candidate from one of their own. It looks like solidarity to their cycle. Let's see how it goes then.
All right. As Nigeria joins the rest of the world to celebrate World Milk Day, the federal government has been tasked to encourage modern-day ranching. Extreme violence associated with cattle rustling and traditional cattle breeding have contributed to the inadequate production of milk for every Nigerian household. The report.
This year, the theme of the United Nations Milk Day is to highlight and accelerate climate action and help reduce the dairy sector's impact on the planet. But in Nigeria, experts say unfavorable climatic conditions associated with dairy production may not be the major concern compared to the violent and traditional practice of moving with the cattle from one place to another in search of pastoral land. Senior agricultural advisor of the Nigerian Governors Forum said deliberate efforts should be put in place to change the traditional practice of cattle breeding to modern-day practice for wealth creation.
There is what you call zero grazing. Zero grazing means you keep your livestock in one place. Instead of the livestock to trek and look for the food, you look for the food for the livestock and give them. Instead of the livestock to trek to look for water, you provide the source of water, and then the livestock will be there. That's zero grazing. And the concept is simple. You get a small area of land, you fence it, you do a permanent water source. There are plenty of grass species, you understand, that you can actually introduce, and then you can be planting the grass year round. Then secondly, you can do a small veterinary clinic because of the animals, a small maternal and child clinic because of the herdsmen and their families, a small market for their transaction, a small road access, etc. And before you know it, they will be permanently settled and the milk production will increase.
Janabasi Apaniyang, a director of the Dairy Ranchers Association of Nigeria, said with about 200 million of cattle in Nigeria, the country only contributed 40% of milk due to insecurity and open grazing.
Government at all levels, not just the federal government, the state governments and even the local governments should be helping us to sort out, because we have issues with cattle rustling, even milk that is collected within the rural communities before they get to the factories. We have people being kidnapped and all that. So insecurity is endemic at the moment in the country, and we need things like this to be sorted out so we can operate freely within the environment.
Nigeria is said to be the 5th largest cattle herd in Africa, following Ethiopia, Sudan, Chad, and Tanzania, with about 200 million cattle. Experts suggested that the country must also review its approach to cattle banditry and the increasing menace of Boko Haram ISWAP in the northeast.
Interesting reports there on milk production coming one day after the world celebrated the World Milk Day.
Yes.
We hope that we will get to that point where, as a country, some of these things we will be able to produce in-house to meet our local need, especially given that milk is essential to growth.
Exactly.
Is essential to building strong bones and even building a very sharp mind for Nigeria's young ones. So milk security is a must for Nigeria, and we have to find a way.
Yeah, its importance cannot be overemphasized. You know, it actually contains high quality protein and micronutrients
and
that helps, you know, absorb easily. So, you know, it's very, very important. Who doesn't like milk, except those who are lactose intolerant?
Well, which are very few in Nigeria, by the way. And at any rate, we don't even do any tests to show whether we don't like them. I think depending on what form it is presented to you, we all like milk in one form. I mean, you can't run away. If you eat bread, you eat milk in one form or the other. Moving on, the Federal Executive Council has approved measures in response to the latest report from the Ministry of Finance for the first quarter GDP performance of 2022. The Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, admitted that the country's improving economy was not impacting positively on Nigerians. She revealed this on Wednesday to newsmen at the State House in Abuja after a meeting of the council. Kainde Amadu reports.
The Nigerian economy has grown by 3.1% in the first quarter of 2022, compared to a growth of 0.5% in the first quarter of last year. The report implies that there is gradual economic stability from the recession witnessed in 2020 after 6 quarters of positive growth. But the finance minister admits that these positive indices will not be directly felt by the people unless there is growth in most sectors, especially those that impact on jobs.
We also reported to Council that inflation has started going upwards to the extent that the monetary authorities, the central bank, have had to adjust the MPR to 13% in the last MPC that they have met, and that's an attempt to manage the cost of inflation. So Council has decided to set up a special effort to look at the sectors that are not growing and also to look at how we can grow the other sectors better.
Also on Wednesday, the Council of Ministers gave the go-ahead for the execution of an MOU between NNPC Limited and the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. This will result in the construction of the Nigeria-Morocco gas pipeline.
This pipeline is to take gas to 15 West African countries and to Morocco, and through Morocco to Spain and Europe.
Meanwhile, the cabinet approved contracts for the Nigerian Police Trust Fund, totaling over 8.3 billion naira.
What we're having now have been assembled from the output of the end user, that is the Nigerian Police Force. And we believe by the time these items are on ground, they will go a long way in improving the efficiency and the effectiveness of Nigerian police in the maintenance of peace and security in the country.
The contracts approved were for the purchase of 82 operational vehicles, supply of customized police raincoats and customized police boots, as well as customized instructional materials for the police colleges and schools. From State House, Abuja, Kainde Amodu, Trust TV News.
Welcome back from that report. If you're just joining us, this is Daybreak on Trust Television. It's a very interesting report, especially given that the government is now beginning to admit in its own words and by its own major economic players that whatever kind of growth we seem to be pointing at is not exactly reflecting on the household.
Exactly.
For the average Nigerian, growth is when they can tell that the price of bread drops from 800 naira to say maybe 400 or 250.
Or Gary, or rice, when things are cheaper, when
every
food
other
is
English
accessible.
you speak around marginal GDP, I mean, you are just basically talking to the 5% elites. That also does not trickle down to the household.
Exactly.
So we want to see security improve so that farmers can return to the farm. That way we can have more harvest and more production, then mean prices would come down. That's the only language. Anything other than that would just be basically talking in a language that only the people...
They don't understand.
Yes, who say these things understand them. It's that segment, again, where we bring you all the major newspaper headlines and insights from these major newspapers with our analysts in the house. We will take this break, and when we return, we will serve you the details. Stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that they look at the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that.
Welcome back. If you are just joining us again, it's Trust Television. We have in the studio this morning to give us insight on what the newspaper headlines are saying this morning. The editor-in-chief of Dateline newspaper and a friend of the house, if you like, a stakeholder of the house at this point. You move from friend to stakeholder. And I'm talking about no other than Marlon Nasrullah. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning.
Good morning. It's always good to be here.
Thank you. We will start with our first newspaper, as usual, the Daily Trust. And featuring very prominently on the covers of the Daily Trust this morning is a lead with the kicker, APC Presidential Primaries, confusion, horse trading among governors, aspirants, camps. With the riders, consensus talk divide governors, lobbies intensify push, discordant tones as aspirants claim Buhari's endorsement. I mean, this has always been there from day one. Everybody who shows up at the presidential villa seems to have one kind of endorsement.
Or another, yeah.
It appears like they seem to be meeting a different president in the villa than the one we know. That's a major story on Daily Trust newspaper. And moving on to those directly behind the nameplate, we have APC PDP post-primary crisis hit states. You'll find that story on page 3. FEC OK's NNPC ECOWAS Pact on Nigeria's Morocco gas pipeline. We just brought you a report prior to the newspaper segment on this, but you can find the details of this story on page 22. And on the editor's peak, inflation, Buhari convenes National Food Security Council meeting, 6 global collaboration. You find that story on page 4. Kwara reopens schools, reaffirms use of hijab. I mean, if you had followed this story, you know the kind of crisis that what is just merely symbolic has become of a society that should tolerate and respect our individual differences while we strive to build a community. Ukraine conflicts, ISDB, that is the Islamic Development Bank, to support Nigeria, others. And I think this is more like a direct response to the earlier story on Buhari convening a National Food Security Council meeting. And the major belts on the Daily Trust newspaper this morning is bandit adopts cars, burn 8 vehicles on the Kaduna Highway. That's the sad one. They are making every effort to shut down that road completely, or rather shut down or isolate completely Kaduna from every other part of the country. Really and the major picture on the Daily Trust this morning, it's the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar receiving his certificate of return. That looks like one Ivy League certificate from.
And this has to be like the 6th time he's actually received a certificate.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That should be taking up some important spaces in his office or home. From the national chairman of the PDP, Iyocha Ayu, yesterday at the PDP National Secretariat. In the middle, you have there Senator Samuel Anyang, clapping and with others observing from the background.
All right, well, let's move on to our guest in the studio, and let's begin with the lead story here on Daily Trust, talking about the APC Presidential Primary and as confusion, horse trading among governors and aspirants camp. But what's your take on all of this?
It's actually quite unfortunate that just like 4 or 5 days to the deadline, we are still talking about confusion because if INEC had not extended the deadline, we would be talking about submitting whoever is the candidate by tomorrow. But we are still talking about the governors not even being on the same page, about something that all of them are going to be like major stakeholders. So what I believe is for the presidency to be able to come out in a way that people will not be, ascribing some things to it. You see so many of the aspirants claiming to have the endorsement of the president. Some people around the president. Why should we be talking about that when you have the delegates to try to, by telling them what you intend to do, the things that you have in store for Nigerians and things like that. That's what we should be talking about. But we are still bogged down by the
elections
news of governors not, being on the same page, which is quite unfortunate.
My worry with this development is, on the one hand, it appears like the hint the president dropped is not democratic, right? But on the other hand, you have governors who
the
themselves...
hints where he said he wants to choose his successor.
who themselves have perfected the act of always wanting to pick their successor. Some of them go as far as picking their own son-in-laws. And if possible, even daring to want to even put their children forward. Should they have been surprised? Is it that they didn't see the handwriting coming all along, that the president was going to end up with his own candidate?
It will be very wrong for them to do that because, like you said, even the president actually made reference to that in his speech, to say that just like they were allowed to play a major role in the emergence of their potential successors, he should also be supported to do the same. But so many people will say it's probably late because the president has done his own part. So it's left to the governors whether to do the bidding of the president or to do what they want to do independently without maybe taking into consideration what the president wants to achieve. What actually the governors did in their own states, at least they subjected, the people to some form of election, even though you can see their influence all over the place. This is what I also expect the president to do. Since we are in a democracy, you are not allowed to just come out to say, this is the person that I want to succeed me, when there are processes to follow. It's either you do it through the direct primaries, like it's allowed by the Electoral Act, or the indirect primaries, or even consensus. If you are settling for consensus, you should know that there are also certain things that you need to give before you will be able to do that, because you can't be talking about consensus when other aspirants are claiming to maybe be shut out of the process. So the governors should have seen this coming, like you said, but the president should also should have done his homework much earlier, so that by now we'll be talking about maybe just crossing the dotting the I's and crossing the T's and all that. But now that we are still, probably he didn't show enough interest in the first
in the
place.
beginning, because he said that he's not interested, in who succeeds him. But now, a lot of people are actually saying that he's actually imposing someone on Nigeria, and also saying that Oshibajo fits the description of who he wants to succeed him.
Well, you can see even people like I wouldn't want to start mentioning names, but virtually all the aspirants are claiming to have, the endorsement of the president, and that's because there is no clear indication from the presidency to show. And like you said, this is a man that in the past, said he is not interested in whoever will succeed him. It's left to Nigerians to decide that. Even at the moment, that's what should happen. I don't think it will be imposition of a successor, because we're only talking about the APC primaries.
That's right.
After the APC primaries, there is still the general election. And of course, so many people will say it wouldn't give them some confidence for the president to be talking like this, because already people are claiming that maybe they want to influence the electoral empire by coming out to say things like this. So they should have respected the law, called the people candidate at the moment. They are not yet successors. It's only when Nigerians decide, as such, that they will become successors. For now, they can only be candidates, ready to participate in the 2023 election.
All right, so let's move on to yet another story. We actually talked about this earlier, but we would like you to share your thoughts on the inflation and how Buhari has convened, or it convenes National Food Security Council meeting seeking global collaboration, and also linking it to, the Islamic Bank, supporting Nigeria and other countries as well.
Well, like the president is trying to do, inflation is right now a global problem. It's virtually all over the place. Some are blaming the war in Ukraine, for the escalation of some of these things that we are seeing. But honestly, I think we should start moving away from, just holding conferences, talk shops and what have you, when in reality, the common man is not seeing the benefit of, all that. If you are talking about inflation, there is a reason for it. So why don't you just tackle that problem so that the people will be able to get what they want, without suffering to get them. These are some of these things that we are even talking about are things that we can source even locally. We are talking about food, we are talking about wheat, for instance. Nigeria has the capacity to do so much, but we are not doing that at the moment. And coupled with the insecurity, there are so many things you cannot do, when in reality we should be the ones actually deciding the price of these commodities around the globe. But look at the size of our population. Even though some people will argue that the population is not productive, how many of them will be able to afford, the basic things of life? Because, and that boils down to the problem. The problem boils down to the government also, because it's the government that is responsible for most of the things that are happening.
True, absolutely true. Talking about a productive economy, it starts from one small shop being able to employ 2 people, who then, just like Ponzi scheme, go on to employ 2 people, and 2 people bring 2 people, and then we move on from there. But a very disturbing report on the cover of the Daily Trust definitely would be the bandits adopting scores and burning 8 vehicles on the Kaduna Highway. Would we ever get to a point where we are able to secure that 160-kilometer stretch? What is difficult in guaranteeing safety and security on that corridor? And to think that these abductions are done in broad daylight, not exactly at night. It appears like when we go to sleep, they also go to sleep. And then when we wake up, they wake up to come
to work.
Is there anything we can do to secure this highway as a sign of some kind of security presence?
Actually, the story is not talking about the Kaduna-Abuja highway this time around. It's actually talking about the Birnin-Gwari highway. Kaduna highway. Which so many drivers, so many motorists have long abandoned that route, because apart from the poor nature of that road, there is also the insecurity. And people are now talking about the presence of not only the bandits, but also terrorists, Boko Haram, Ansar, and the other non-state actors that they are virtually in charge. I will tell you a story. I have my maternal grandparents, from Kwantagora, and I used to visit them like every other year. But like 4 years on now, I have not been able to do that. In fact, they will even tell me, don't even try it. At least we have the telephone, and you can call and exchange whatever pleasantries you want to exchange. But being on that road, for you, the traveler, you won't be at a rest of mind until you reach your destination. The same thing with all the people that know that you are traveling. They wouldn't be comfortable until you call them to say that, okay, I have arrived at my destination. And so this is something that we shouldn't be talking about. Even the Kaduna-Abuja highway, it's still, how many people, I know so many people that have not traveled for like 2 months now because of the state of that road, because anything can happen. You just don't know when. So people don't feel comfortable actually taking that route.
All right. Well, with that, we'll move on to the next paper, which is Nigerian Tribune. And the lead story talks about President's successor, disquiet in APC. Okay, apologies for that. Disquiet in APC over Buhari's statement. We have writers that say your choice of candidates will jeopardize our chance. Stakeholders tell Buhari NWC members want party leadership on danger of consensus candidate. And then if you look above the nameplates there, you find a story that talks about FG to convene food security meeting. FEC okays 23.5 billion naira for petroleum, power, police ministry projects. We must unite to end APC misrule. Atiku rallies PDP as he gets his certificate of return. And on news analysis, 2023 presidential race, APC and Nigeria face daunting odds. Now, if you look at the pictorial there, you'd find scenes of some motorcycles seized by security operatives during the enforcement of the ban on Okada operations in Lagos on Wednesday. And, you know, below that pictorial, a story that talks about Okada ban enforcement taking off in Lagos. Commercial motorcyclists disappear from Apapa, Tinkan, Igomu, Ijora. Port users trek, ride bicycles. Lagos steps up action on alternative transport services. And then we also have, finally, unremitted tax deductions. FIRS begins enforcement to bar defaulting states from local external borrowings and bond issuance. These are some of the stories on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune.
Looking at that major story on
the president's successors.
Do you think some of the aspirants feel that by the virtue of that statement that they are completely out of the contention to even be complaining, you know, about what danger it portends for the party?
Well, you know, this is politics. Politicians have a way of hiding, you know, their interest. For instance, if you are an aspirant, you should be able to have an idea of your chances, the chances that you have. But nobody is talking about that. They will all claim to be like forerunners. You know, they will be claiming to be at the forefront, one of the leading aspirant, you know, things like that. When they know that even among the aspirants, if they are to subject them to just the minimal of test, you know, they won't be able to scale through. But these are the people that will be making all the noise, you know, and then by the time the primary is held, you will see them having two, three, or even no vote at all. Even though some people are saying now that the process has been monetized, sometimes it's even better to score 0, so that
you will get some money back.
Yeah, you will get your money back, because nobody will come and tell you that you know, was like the one who voted for you, since there is nobody to claim that.
True.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's move on to, you know, the pictorial there on Nigerian Tribune talking about the Okada ban, you know, in Lagos. Well, you know, some, you know, are definitely for it, some are definitely against it. Now, do you think this should also be, you know, there should be a ban in Abuja, because the rate at which, you know, these motorcyclists are committing a lot of atrocities, you know, is getting out of hand. You know, talking about how some of them went to an estate, you know, in local Goma, like last week, to, you know, burn down the gatehouse, and even started burning down houses, you know, because someone, a driver actually, you know, knocked, you know, their colleague down. Taking laws into their hands, you know, jungle justice. Do you think the same should be applied in Abuja?
Already there is a motorcycle ban, you know, but in the city center. But most of the satellite towns, you know, there are still commercial motorcycles operating. But I see this as symptomatic of the problem that we have as a nation. We still cannot boast of a good transport system. If you have a good transport system, nobody will want to, you know, hop onto an Okada like a former columnist of the Daily Trust used to write, that jumping onto an Okada is like jumping onto a conclusion. And that way they have concluded so many lives, you know. That's something that he will say. But look at what is happening. We are still importing motorcycles. And if you see the number, honestly, you will be amazed. Because are we like supplying the bandits? Because they are like some of the major users of all these motorcycles that we are bringing in. And because most of these commercial motorcycles that you see around are actually at the margin, you know, so that's like the only hope they have. They are close to being, you know, that's at the bottom. They see no stake at all, so they don't have anything to lose should anything happen. So I will expect the government to be able to do the needful, take care of our the unemployment population, and then do something about the transport system. If you have a credible, a very efficient transport system, believe me, I know so many people that no longer use Okada because of the tricycles, you know, because they are safer, and then they are not like reckless the same way the commercial motorcyclists are. So that's what we should be talking about. We want to end this thing, and yet we allow people to be importing these motorcycles on a daily basis. Where do we expect all these motorcycles to end up in? And you know one thing about these commercial motorcycles, they know sometimes they are not even remitting the money that they should be remitting to the owners. Because you know why? If you take your motorcycle from them, there is the next person who is willing to give them a new one, because we don't even know how to invest. We don't even know. We think the best way you can make money is to buy a motorcycle, give it to someone, and then he starts remitting. Honestly, we need a serious change.
True. It's unfortunate when you discuss this motorcycle issue, because it does appear like the easiest commodities that politicians share whenever this election cycle come around. They share them in thousands and then turn back when they are elected to start fighting the menace that is caused by the article that they share. Moving quickly to the These Day newspapers, I beg your pardon. It appears that most of the headlines are dancing around the activities in the APC. Yes, the major headline here reads, Presidency, APC still divided on zoning, Malls option to face Atiku. The writers here, I beg your pardon, reads, some governors want to go south, Adamu others prefer north. Party may reopen sale of forms to broaden choice of candidates. I'm so sorry. Moves to encourage El-Rufai Zulu to join race. There you will find Buhari's picture on the cover in his ongoing visit to Spain, to the headquarters of the WTO, along with the Minister of Foreign Affairs there in the picture. Other headlines read, FG, disagreement among concessionaires, delaying takeoff of $3.1 billion e-customs project. OK's $968 million for emergency restoration of Lagos power line, and moves to address rising food prices. Atiku receives certificate of return, says there is much to be done. That's another headline there, and you'll find that story on page 43. Buhari, Spanish king, canvasses global cooperation to avert looming food crisis. That story is on page 41. And Army denies involvement of soldiers in the kidnap of Methodist Church prelate. That's another episode that has refused to go away from the news. We saw, and then Lawal to Delegates, choose a leader with absolutely no baggage. Before we move on from this paper, since it does appear that the issue look quite similar with others, I would like you to comment on the kidnap and release of the Methodist prelate. It appears, just as with the political parties, the kidnappers have also upped their ante. 100 million now seem to be the minimum threshold for this kidnap. Where are we going with all of this?
Well, let me start by saying that I am happy that the prelate was able to return safely, even though a ransom was paid, like he rightly confirmed. But our security agencies should also worry because for people to even start accusing them of complicity, of conniving with criminals, honestly, it says a lot. You can see even the Nigerian police force, I think the IGP had to disown comments made by a certain CSP in Anambra who accused the military and of aiding some herders, to perpetrate all these
crimes.
This is something that is coming out of frustration. Even the security agents are now becoming frustrated. So what more of the people? So our security agencies should up their game. They shouldn't allow things like this to be happening, because it is only when they happen that people will now start, alleging one or two things to it. When they don't happen, you will have to look for where to take your accusations or your blames. Yeah,
true.
So let's quickly move on to the Guardian newspaper. The lead story says APC stakeholders Pandef slam Buhari on successor charge. We have writers that say Tinubu supporters Lukman, others reject plot for consensus. Tinubu joining SDP, mere speculation, says Oni. It's absurd. There is no citizens' participation in selection process, says Pandef. Melaye says it's abominable for Buhari to pick his successor in a democracy. Ndume says Buhari in order should be interested in who succeeds him. And we have another story that talks about why malaria cases will continue to rise in Nigeria by WHO. FG plans to imprison Kanu without trial. US-based lawyer tells Ohaneze. Don Etibet, other APC chiefs raise alarm over fake delegates list to national convention. And then we have a story right below the page that talks about 1.2 trillion naira unremitted oil money raises fresh concerns over federal government's revenue agencies. I mean, we've seen, the case of the accountants general of the Federation, and now we're seeing this 1.2 trillion naira unremitted. Share your thoughts.
I don't know why the government is, well, I wouldn't want to call them bandits because they are like doing the same thing. They are still not respecting our laws. They are not doing what they're supposed to do. They are like in war with the state, when they should actually be the ones in charge, trying to get all of us to support them for the development of the country as a whole. I even saw the FIRS like making the same threat to advise the federal government to stop the loan request of all these states, because sometimes these states and local governments will collect money that is meant for the center, and then they will not remit it. And then they will be all over the place still looking for
where to get
money.
Where to get money,
and, then this unremitted amount that we are talking about, it is actually things like this that ASU and other agitators are using to further their case. Because you are claiming that the government has no money, and then here we are talking about huge amount of money that is still like, I wouldn't want to call them missing for now, but that have not been remitted. And nobody knows what's going to happen to them. Probably it's part of all the things that some politicians are using to do all this vote buying.
Definitely.
Possibly.
Definitely. I think we can point to a handful of those politicians who even own a bread factory, who have never done anything outside of being in governance.
Exactly.
It's terrible. We were reading in our bulletins earlier how a director of finance and administration had built a university and every other thing that had gone from merely serving in the position for 3 years. It's crazy.
It's
honestly,
sad.
if you ask me about that, I will say it's even good. Not good that he is being accused, but the fact that we can even trace
the money,
the things that he was able to do with the money. There are so many people that have taken the money out of this country, and then these monies are not going to return. Or when they are returning, they come with all sorts of
appellation.
Okay, talking about the school buildings that were seized. Now, what happens to these buildings? Because in most cases, they just seal them off, and then they just allow them to rot away.
Sometimes what they do is to place them under what do I call now? Is to place them under some ownership structure to show that this thing is under investigation or something like that, so that people will not transact
the business,
with them and things like that. Like they can't sell the property, they can't do so many things. Caveat.
Okay.
So moving quickly before we round up this session, we will take the Nation's newspaper. I will just quickly run through the headlines. 2023 president. It is South's turn after Buhari, says Ayade. I think he was making this statement at the visit of Tinubu when the Tinubu presidential campaign trail made a stopover in Cross River. Other headlines on the Nation newspaper: PDP delegate shares 7 million with community. It's windfall time. It's good that you take something to the gods. And then the ministry director for Fitz Varsity Hotel and Factory. Nigeria, Spain seek global action against food crisis. Kwara reopened schools shut last year over hijab. I think this some of the stories that were adequately captured in other newspapers that our reviewer had reviewed this morning. It's a pleasure to have had you come share your thought with us this morning on some of this major headline. We wish you a very delightful day.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
If you are just joining us, we've been talking to the editor-in-chief of Dateline newspaper, Malan Nasrullah, who has shared his thoughts with us on the major newspaper headlines this morning. We will take a breather, and when we return, the show continues. Please stay with us.
As the 2023 elections draw near, remember, evil prospers when good men and women only wish for peace, but never take a step to make peaceful elections happen. Are you a father? Are you a mother? What are you saying to your children as elections approach? Have you warned them not to let themselves be used to cause violence? Have you explained to them what the consequences of electoral violence might be? Do your part to make peaceful elections happen. Talk to your children. Protect them from unscrupulous politicians who want to put them in harm's way, while their own children are comfortable at home, within and outside the country. Let's join hands to make 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency, NOAA.
Daily, we bring you updates around politics.
People like you who are very young, you have no future. Anybody now who is 30 years, if what is happening to them continues, by the time you are 60, you will have no country.
The DPO of a particular unit does not have to wait until the commissioner tells him what to do within his jurisdiction.
We have political parties on the ground. Some of them have been there for years. But they themselves, in their own sober moments, they know that this country is not the one they are expecting to run.
Policy and governance.
Are you saying the NBS is lying?
I'm saying to you very clearly that the NBS has a serious problem with accurate data till today.
The 5th Assembly, as well as the 7th Assembly, their own attempt were unproductive.
Emergence of the Taliban has simply emboldened terror groups globally.
There is a lot of attention with regards to security developments in Nigeria.
On Daily Politics, we interrogate issues, holding the actors to account, bearing in mind all the sides.
We heard that in some places now, people have to go and pay tax, not to the local government, not to the state, but to criminals.
Nobody can come to your house and kidnap you without information.
If this country is bleeding, it is bleeding because we have failed to educate our young.
Good morning, Nigeria, and welcome to Daybreak on Trust Television. It's 8 a.m. in the morning. Is that part of the program? If you were in a flight where we tell you to begin to prepare for
takeoff,
for landing, actually.
Oh, landing. Okay, yeah, we've taken
all
up
the
already.
initial necessary preparations should come in place. I am Sunday Michael Ogu.
And I'm Dasha and Hussein Ausman. Thank you so much for joining us. We go straight to the highlights. A civil servant forfeits Hotel University factory to federal government.
And in the other news, INEC records 10 million fresh enrollments on the continuous voters registration.
And CDC reports 54 deaths from cholera between January to June 2022. And with that, we'll move on to the main story, talking about the Independent National Electoral Commission on Wednesday said fresh registration in the continuous voters registration has hit 10.2 million. INEC, while disclosing this in its Q4 Week 7 report released in Abuja, said 6.5 registrants have so far completed their registration. The commission said out of the people that completed the registration, about 3 million did it online, while over 3.6 million did physical registration. A gender breakdown of the registration revealed that 3.25 million were males, while 3.29 million were females, of which 53,663 were persons with disabilities and over 4.5 million were youths.
I wish the women would use their strength in this registration to indeed impose on us candidates of their choice.
They intend to.
Moving on to other news, a federal high court sitting in Abuja has ordered the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, to seize the university linked to the former federal director of accounts in the Federal Ministry of Health, Anthony Hassan. The court ordered seizure of NOC University, Kaduna, and other properties linked to the former director. Justice Zainab Abubakar, the presiding judge, gave the order saying proceeds of the unlawful activities were traced to its owner. Hassan, who was a DFA in the Ministry of Health between 2016 and 2019, allegedly built the university through fraudulent means. Physical assets of the university forfeited include the Senate building, ICT building, Faculty of Medicine building, Science Deanery building, 2 academic buildings, a faculty hall, and other buildings.
All right, and finally, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control says no fewer than 54 people have died of cholera disease in the country. In its latest report on the outbreak of the disease, the NCDC stated that the deaths were recorded between January 1 and May 1, 2022. It added that over 1,800 suspected cases were reported in 77 local government areas across 16 states of the country. The states are Abia, Adamawa, Akwa Ibom, Bauchi, Bayelsa, Borno, Cross Rivers, and Katsina. Others are Kebbi, Kwara, Lagos, Nasarawa, Ondo, Rivers, Taraba, and Zamfara states. According to the health agency, 12 local government areas across 6 states reported more than 30 cases each year, or this year, I beg your pardon. These comprise 5 in Cross Rivers, 3 in Taraba, as well as 1 each in Bayelsa, Katsina, Kebbi, and Rivers states. And with that, we wrap up the news highlights at this hour.
And moving on, the Federal Executive Council has approved measures in response to the latest report from the Ministry of Finance for the first quarter GDP performance of 2022. The Ministry of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, admitted that the country's improving economy was not impacting positively on Nigerians. She revealed this on Wednesday to newsmen at the State House in Abuja after a meeting of the council. Kainde Amadu reports.
The Nigerian economy has grown by 3.1% in the first quarter of 2022, compared to a growth of 0.5% in the first quarter of last year. The report implies that there is gradual economic stability from the recession witnessed in 2020 after 6 quarters of positive growth. But the finance minister admits that these positive indices will not be directly felt by the people unless there is growth in most sectors, especially those that impact on jobs.
We also reported to Council that inflation has started going upwards to the extent that the monetary authorities, the central bank, have had to adjust the MPR to 13% in the last MPC that they have met, and that's an attempt to manage the cost of inflation. So Council has decided to set up a special effort to look at the sectors that are not growing, and also to look at how we can grow the other sectors better.
Also on Wednesday, the Council of Ministers gave the go-ahead for the execution of an MOU between NNPC Limited and the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. This will result in the construction of the Nigeria-Morocco gas pipeline.
This pipeline is to take gas to 15 West African countries and to Morocco, and through Morocco to Spain and Europe.
Meanwhile, the cabinet approved contracts for the Nigerian Police Trust Fund, totaling over 8.3 billion naira.
What we're having now have been assembled from the output of the end user, that is the Nigerian Police Force. We believe by the time these items are on ground, they will go a long way in improving the efficiency and the effectiveness of the Nigerian police in the maintenance of peace and security in the country.
The contracts approved were for the purchase of 82 operational vehicles, supply of customized police raincoats and customized police boots, as well as customized instructional materials for the police colleges and schools. From State House, Abuja, Kehinde Amodu, Trust TV News.
Presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party and former Vice President Atiku Abubakar on Wednesday received his certificate of return from the leadership of the party with a declaration that the process of rescuing and rebuilding the country has just begun. Atiku, however, reminds the party that the task ahead is enormous and members must get to work immediately for the party to secure victory. Trust TV's Shafiu Suleiman reports.
It's the fallout of his emergence as the party's presidential flag bearer at the last Saturday's convention, defeating his closest opponent, Rivers State Nyesom Wike.
I want to congratulate him and congratulate all other aspirants who participated in this event. If they didn't participate, it actually would have not been a successful event.
Atiku Abubakar is however not losing sight to the fact that there is urgent need to reach out to the aggrieved party members who are not pleased with the outcome of the just concluded convention.
Contested against me as a way to lead in that effort to unify the party so that we can face our real opponents, defeat them in the elections, and begin the process of rescuing and rebuilding this country.
Some party chieftains are however positive that the party will deploy its internal mechanisms to pacify the Southeast region, which is nursing the grudge of denying it the presidential ticket by discarding the zoning arrangement.
I'm telling you sincerely, the Southerners are not threatening anything. This is a family problem, and when you have differences in the family, they always come together to resolve it, and I am very confident that we are going to resolve.
I believe that the party will strategically sit together and find how to deal with the matter. Is there anger? There's anger. Is there unhappiness? There's unhappiness. The people that were already feeling marginalized now feel completely ignored, not just being marginalized, they're ignored.
The major opposition People's Democratic Party, PDP, lost central government to the All Progressives Congress, APC, in 2015 when it was voted out by the Nigerian electorates for failing to meet their expectations after 16 years on the saddle. Shafiu Suleiman, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Finance ministers and leading private sector players from 57 countries are meeting in the Egyptian resort of Sharm el-Sheikh to explore business and economic activities opportunities across the Islamic Development Bank's member countries. Now, the gathering is part of the bank's 47th annual meeting with the theme Beyond Recovery, Resilience and Sustainability. The bank is a leading development institute supporting the development of innovative and knowledge-based solutions to fund the sustainable economic advancement of member countries and Muslim communities worldwide. Now, Daily Trust's editor-in-chief, Naziru Mikhail, is attending the event and joins us via Skype. Good morning, Naziru, and thanks for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
Good morning, Usaina and Sunday.
This morning.
All right, can you tell us more about the event?
So the event taking place here is the largest gathering of member states of the Islamic Development Bank. We have more than 2,500 delegates in attendance. These include finance ministers, experts, chief executive officers of leading private and public financial institutions, investors, and entrepreneurs from different parts of the world, because the membership of the bank cut across all the continents of the world, from Africa to Middle East to Asia to Eastern Europe and to some countries in the Americas, because it's not only the Muslim majority countries that are members. The bank also admits communities in countries with the Muslim population. So it's the largest gathering, and they're doing different things. Different side talks, meetings, seminars are taking place, discussing virtually almost every sector of the Islamic finance. For example, the former Nigerian Minister of Finance, Dr. Mansour Mukhtar, who is the bank vice president on operation, while addressing a press conference yesterday, he explained some of the measures that the
do appreciate the challenges posed by the situation in Russia and Ukraine, the Russian-Ukrainian war, certainly. And largely, of course, in terms of the impact on particularly commodity prices and oil prices and food prices in particular. We do know that many of our member countries rely a lot on imports from these countries. In some instances, up to 70% of their food imports is from these places. So they are now facing difficulties in accessing these supplies, and in addition to that, of course, we know that prices have escalated. So this is exacerbating existing vulnerabilities. Many of these countries, including Nigeria, have been facing issues with climate change, drought-induced shortages, and low productivity in the agriculture sector. And in the context, really, what we have been working with other multilateral development institutions, as well as the United Nations. We have a global crisis steering committee of which the Islamic Development Bank is a member, and the idea is to really work in concert, in partnership, to reinforce each other's efforts in providing support to these member countries in a coordinated manner. And the emphasis, of course, should be on strengthening the resilience of the food system in these countries. So paying attention to how we can support agriculture development initiatives in terms of enhancing productivity, in terms of facilitating greater access to market, in terms of improving access to inputs, seeds, etc. And in Nigeria, in many African countries, we have, in some African countries, we have supporting them with projects, agricultural rice value chain project that's intervening across the entire sector to strengthen production and marketing of rice to make them.
Okay, we'll take a short break so we can reconnect with Mr. Naziru, and we'll be right back.
To every politician, as the campaigns gain momentum and passions begin to rise, remember, the errors of your opponents do not make you a success. Do not run down your opponent and inflame passions to violence between and among your supporters. What counts is what you plan to do for the electorate and how you intend to relieve the sufferings and bring succor. Nigeria is in dire need of patriotic leaders at all levels. Leaders who will make national development their priority. Concentrate on telling the electorate what you intend to do when you get into office. Focus on making your vision clear to the electorate. Don't engage in verbal abuses, fake news or speeches. Keep dealing with issues that will bring progress. You win the hearts and minds of the people by being above board, by being civil, patriotic, and showing empathy. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. A message from the National Orientation Agency.
Hello, welcome to Adam's Grill on Trust TV. I am Adam Mani Ngora, your host. In this program, we will be introducing you to a different style of cooking. We will now begin to prepare the rice on a finishing line. Here is an opportunity for you to watch, learn, and practice. If you don't make your food to be your medicine, then medicine will become your food.
As the 2023 elections draw near, remember, evil prospers when good men and women only wish for peace, but never take a step to make peaceful elections happen. Are you a father? Are you a mother? What are you saying to your children as elections approach? Have you warned them not to let themselves be used to cause violence? Have you explained to them what the consequences of electoral violence might be? Do your part to make peaceful elections happen. Talk to your children. Protect them from unscrupulous politicians who want to put them in harm's way, while their own children are comfortable at home, within and outside the country. Let's join hands to make 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency, NOAA.
Thank you very much for joining us. If you're just tuning in, this is Daybreak on Trust Television, and we are at this moment being joined by Nazir Mikhail, the editor-in-chief of Daily Trust newspaper, who is attending the Islamic Development Bank annual general meeting in Egypt. And prior to that break, he was giving us a rundown of some of the major developments in the first day of the meeting, which also included resolutions to support Nigeria and other African countries to tackle food crisis. You're welcome back again, Nazir. I hope the connection would allow us see through this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you. One fallout of the Ukrainian crisis is the sanction imposed on Russia by the West, which seem to have crippled global supply chain, especially as it pertains to grains and and petroleum products. We understand that the gathering also looked at this and what it can do to ameliorate this difficulty. Can you take us through what major resolutions were made in this regard?
Okay, so the leadership of the bank and other experts attending the meeting agreed that the situation in Ukraine had adversely affected commodity and oil prices, as we know. They also added that many of the bank member countries, especially in Africa, they rely a lot on imports from the affected Eastern European countries, they are now facing difficulties in accessing supplies. So in addition to this problem, the bank, in trying to resolve it, the bank is now working with partners like the United Nations, WTO, that's the World Trade Organization, in trying to see how can some of these countries be exempted from the sanctions imposed on Russia, for example, as a result of its invasion of Ukraine. So Dr. Mansour was saying they're really trying to convene the United Nations and other partners to ensure that obstacles to trade as a result of the sanctions are addressed. This is what he said.
Collectively, we are also working with other MDBs and with the UN to ensure that we lobby effectively to remove obstacles to trade, to ensure there is smooth flow of commodities, because what's happening is that some of these countries now are blocking access to their commodities, and even the ban on the sale of on the purchase of Russian and Ukrainian wheat is causing collateral damage to some of our countries. So we are advocating that we need to, along with WTO, that we need to really have some exemptions to ensure that there is a flow of food to these countries.
All right, Naziru, there are lots of issues, discussed around, food security, and prices and insecurity in many, African countries, especially the Sahel region. This is where, the bank has a lot of members. Now, has this been discussed so far?
Yes, Hussein, at the press conference yesterday, the president in charge of operations for Islamic Development Bank, Dr. was asked by a colleague from about what the bank is doing. Chad is part of the Sahel, so the Lake Chad. So it is facing insecurity and also which is affecting countries in the region. So he was asked by the Chadian journalist and what the bank is actually doing. So he was very categorical in saying the security and agriculture in the Sahel is very important to the bank because some of these very important member countries are located in that region, and they are working with partners to mobilize resources to address it in a way that will ensure the security of farmers, the security of farms, and also ensure that the food supply chain is not impacted by the insecurity in that region. This would also include supporting the development of the Lake Chad to ensure that the countries and the people living in the region benefit from the resources that are there.
Thank you very much. It appears the first day was loaded with quite a number of issues as it borders on the activities of member nations. You are going into the second day of deliberations today. Can you give our listeners and viewers a clue of what to expect from the AGM today?
Okay, so the meeting today will continue where it stopped yesterday. There will be a lot of sessions, especially on good governance and poverty. There is a report on poverty index to be presented today. The session will be chaired by the Egyptian Minister of Budget and Development. And this research was carried out in partnership with the University of Oxford. they have a center on poverty eradication. So it was a joint research. It will be presented and experts will discuss it. There will also be signing of agreement and memorandum of understandings between some governments and private institutions all around development and making sure that the recovery from pandemic is not hampered by some of the challenges being posed by, let's say, the war in Ukraine, for example. So this is some of the things that are going to take place later today.
Okay, so what should Nigeria expect from the summit, being a member of the bank, considering the, economic realities that it is facing today?
Yes, we all know that the situation in Nigeria, for example, the rising food prices, oil prices, the situation in Ukraine has not helped matters in Nigeria in any way. And then the insecurity in different parts of the country. So all you put this together, coupled with the rising debt and also the struggle to repay the debt. So the bank, Islamic Development Bank, is one of the creditors to Nigeria, for example. So we have not heard officially from the Nigerian delegations here, but we're hoping to do so in the course of this meeting. But what we expect is they would try and sign an agreement around supporting the agricultural production and general value chain of agric, and also consolidate on some of the agreement that the country has with the bank, but also maybe the areas of debt repayment, because Nigeria is repaying debt to some of these global institutions. Of course, Islamic Development Bank is part of it. So maybe we expect they will try and discuss and sign an agreement around this area. But as I said, we have not heard from them yet officially. But I think these are the areas that we expect them to really pay attention.
Thank you very much, Nazir Mikhail, the editor-in-chief of Daily Trust, there with those inciting insight into what had gone down at the Islamic Development Bank Annual General Meeting in Cairo. We will be connecting with you subsequently, perhaps tomorrow, to get more updates from the development, as you mentioned, especially getting to hear from the Nigerian delegation on what milestone, what takeaway we are going to be coming back home with from such an important meeting. Thank you for joining us from Cairo, and we hope at this point we will allow you quickly catch up with your schedule so that you don't run late on the activities for today.
Thank you.
Have a nice day, sir.
All right, and with that, we'll take a quick breather, and when we come back, it'll be time for the second discussion. Do stick around.
Every patriotic Nigerian should hear this. Any politician who means well for the people will never allow themselves or their supporters to engage in any violent, destructive activities. No politician who truly wants to serve the people and develop the nation will encourage his followers to destroy properties or take human lives before, during, or after the elections. The Nigerian public must watch out for these traits and isolate any politician who encourages supporters to engage in violence. No genuine politician or patriot will cause trouble and seek to destroy the very society which they aspire to lead or develop. Politicians who have the good of the people at heart will not allow themselves or their followers to engage in violence, destruction of properties, and then taking of lives. Be vigilant. By their words you shall know them. Shun violence. Stay away from politicians who want you to do so. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency, NORA.
All right, welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak on Trust TV. Now, let's move on to the next discussion. The crisis rocking the All Progressives Congress in Taraba State has continued to fester following the emergence of Senator Emmanuel Bocha as the winner of the governorship primary elections in the state. Now, but a group of aggrieved aspirants on the platform of the All Progressives Congress in Taraba State on Sunday alleged that the primary election committee for Taraba State was nowhere to be found, and so no primaries were conducted in the state. Now, let's get perspectives, on this particular issue, as we have a lawyer and a political analyst, Pius Damba, in the studio. He's also an indigene of Taraba State. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on Daybreak.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so can you just tell us generally, what your take is on, the whole wrangling, in the APC in Taraba State?
Well, you see, party politics is one of the things that is going to make or mar our democracy. Because internal democracy in political parties is very germane in determining how we recruit the leaders that we are going to have in the country and in the state. Now, of course, the political parties have been given the power to determine the mode of selecting or nominating their candidates. But one crucial aspect of the Electoral Act is that such process that they will adopt has to be democratic, giving room for all aspirants to participate in the process freely, without giving undue advantage to any other. And it's not a peculiar problem of the All Progressive Congress. I see it as a problem that we have with virtually all the political parties in Nigeria. That provision for true democracy at the level of the political parties when selecting their candidates is mostly missing in the processes we have seen so far. Political parties don't create level playing ground for their members or for aspirants within their party to be able to, compete fairly and allow the process to be determined, by the actual voters or delegates. So you see people, resorting to all manner of unlawful means to ensure that they just emerge at all costs without complying with their own guidelines, their own rules, or even the constitution of those political parties. And so that is why you see there is a lot of agitations, or there are a lot of complaints from people, because when you don't operate according to your own rules, then certainly your own people will start shouting and will start complaining. And that is what you are seeing from Taraba State.
I would like us to, as much as possible, unmask the conversation. I'm happy that we have a candidate, a guest in the studio that fits three cap. He's a political analyst, he's a lawyer, and as well as a citizen of Taraba State. Can you take our viewers through, other than speaking professionally now,
yes,
what the real issues are in Taraba?
Well, the real issues are that most of the other aspirants or governorship aspirants on the platform of All Progressive Congress. They are not happy with the process because their position is that there was no election in Taraba State. There was no APC primary election in Taraba State. And they have maintained that position because they felt that they were on ground, in Taraba State for the election. They waited for the committee that was set up to conduct the election. The committee came, and of course there were issues about the election materials that were supposed to be distributed, and they demanded to have copies to be shown. Of course, the procedure is that when you are going to conduct an election, you are going to assemble all the stakeholders, including the aspirants, their agents, before the commencement of the election, and show them the materials brought in for the purpose of that election. And those materials will be confirmed to be genuine and distributed in the presence of everyone, including security agencies, media men, of course, and other accredited observers. So the problem started in that process of distribution of materials, because it was now discovered that sensitive materials were missing. And of course, if sensitive materials are missing, then you will not expect that the process is going to be credible or free and fair. And they've been on it, and unfortunately, while they are at it, they now discovered that subsequently the result of the election was declared. So the controversy is if aspirants are still contending about verifying that the election materials have been properly deployed or not, how then do you go on to now declare results for the election?
So the question then would be, what is the likely consequence? Is this appears like a precedent. We have seen this precedent in other states before.
Yes.
What, as a lawyer, what do you think would be the consequence for a process like this that seemed to have thrown up a candidate to the detriment of others?
I think that our politicians must have gotten the message from the judiciary that indeed the judiciary is ready, willing, and able to enforce or to ensure that the laws of the land are complied with. And irrespective of your status or your position, you cannot bend the will of the law. And we have seen it in so many instances where the judiciary came heavily on politicians who try to flout the rules or try to break the rules in ensuring they emerge at all costs. And I see that if there is a challenge to this process, of course, our judiciary will not shy away from doing the needful, because while our laws are clear on the processes that are supposed to be followed in the conduct of primary elections, if they are flouted, the only logical conclusion is that the judiciary will do the needful.
Looking at what transpired in Taraba State, two questions now in one.
Yes.
You, in your introductory statements, you made us understand that certain stakeholders needed to be present for this process to be adjudged credible and fair.
Yes.
One of them is the security agency. In the face of that kind of irregularity,
yes,
did the security agency have a mandate to have truncated or stopped that process from continuing? That is one part of my question.
Yes.
The second part is, even if, what is the consequence beyond even the president laid by the judiciary for stamping his feet? Does this not have a bigger consequences of causing disaffection or breakdown of law and order, especially if one of the persons who may have been disenfranchised, if you like, from the process may have a following that is capable of igniting a crisis, because for them, they feel that the system has been skewed to rob them ab initio?
Yes, indeed. I would say that you are correct in the sense that now, on the first aspect, the security agencies, their role stopped at witnessing or observing the process and ensuring that there is no breakdown of law and order. So they are merely to provide security to the process and ensure that everyone is protected. because they are not members of the party, they have no business intervening to say you must comply with your own law or not, as the case may be. So they are just to witness, to provide security and ensure that everything goes on smoothly. Where parties decide to, breach their own internal rules, it is left for members of that political party to contest the process in the court of law. And on the second aspect, of course, justice and fairness is related to having peace in the society. When there is absence of justice and fairness, then certainly you are going to see crisis emanating from all angles. Because when people feel that they are not fairly treated, justice is not met, they are unduly treated, they are not given equal opportunity, they are being suppressed, certainly they will begin to shout. And that is what we have been seeing. So I feel that if our political parties want to maintain peace, want to maintain harmony, want to carry along their members, then they should operate fairly and give equal opportunity to every member of the political party, irrespective of his position or status.
Okay, now the election committee has actually said that one of its members, was actually shot, and it said aside from the shooting that, it had actually confronted several other issues which must be sorted out before the election would be conducted. Now, what does that mean for the APC in Taraba State?
Well, you see, it's quite unfortunate that we have witnessed what has transpired. And I think that our security agencies have the capacity to actually investigate what transpired, and where people have committed one or two criminal offenses, those persons should be fished out and prosecuted in accordance with the law. Now, of course, we don't forget the fact that the Electoral Act 2022 has made enormous provisions on electoral offenses. Trying to, using violence in election, is an election offense that can be prosecuted by any of the security agencies, and even INEC has now been given power to carry out prosecution. And I think that our politicians must also be minded on these new provisions of the Electoral Act, because there are several offenses you can run foul of, and you can be liable for prosecution by the INEC or other security agencies. So I feel that that can be done.
Talking about several prosecutions and the provisions of the new Electoral Act, in your opinion as a lawyer, do you think the punishment is far-reaching enough to warrant a deterrent? Because talking from precedents, whenever people perpetrate this thing, the worst we have seen is that the court, they've lost the positions, and that's all. We have not seen a judgment that has compelled people who have manipulated their way to power to pay all of the salaries and benefits that they have enjoyed in that office prior to being thrown away, to even be sentenced to a jail term for manipulating the systems and ending up somehow, getting power through the back door. Do you think we can do something, we can raise the stake such that people understand that it is one thing to beat the system, beat the process, and get into power and frustrate justice, but at the tail end of it, when it catches up with you, the consequences are far much more, as to deter people who are thinking in that direction?
Well, deterrence is one of the goals of punishment or the criminal justice system. And of course, that is left for the legislature or the National Assembly.
As major beneficiaries of that process, do you think they would give us?
Yes, it's left for them to prescribe what they think is adequate in the law. But my own opinion is that what has been prescribed so far is enough to deter further persons from committing sin, in that the courts have been empowered to actually make such orders for refund of unlawful salaries and allowances that you must have collected. And I think there are one or two cases where We have even seen the Supreme Court sacking some legislatures and making specific orders that the salaries and allowances they've collected should be refunded. You know, and the only thing I would want to add, what I want to see happen in law, probably to help in ensuring compliance with things like this, is that maybe in the future we can have it enacted that the person who ought to have benefited from that seat should be the one to recover such funds. In that case, you hardly see somebody going scot-free by, you know, appropriating funds from that office illegally, by stealing the ballot, and then going scot-free, because institutional enforcement, maybe by the relevant institutions, may not be as effective as when you confer it on an individual, where it is an individual that knows, I'm going to, these are salaries I was supposed to collect, somebody have taken it, I am entitled to now have it. I can assure you that virtually no one will allow another person to take his salaries and go away with it.
Okay.
Interesting.
Now, with all the, you know, crisis rocking the APC in Taraba State, you know, do you think, you know, other parties, especially the opposition parties, actually taking advantage of the situation? And if they do not, you know, settle, you know, what does that mean for the APC in Taraba State?
Well, in Taraba State, APC is the opposition party, whereas PDP is the party in government. And of course, PDP has added advantage of being the party in government. They appear to be much more organized in terms of the conduct of their primary elections. The elections are not without their own rancor and some irregularities, but at least their own seems to have been done much more fairly, you know, than as compared to the APC. And I think that that is a big challenge on the APC, that is an opposition party in the state, because they are supposed to offer a kind of a better, credible alternative to the PDP in Taraba State. And not being able to do that, even at the level of primaries, you know, leaves so much to desire about.
It's amazing what people want to profit from a system, a process that in itself it's riddled with irregularities. You want to come out and be sure that you are the popular candidate, you are the people's choice, and so when you proceed to the real battle, you have that understanding that there's a real force behind your candidature, not a process that sort of confers or coerces you on the members of the process. We have been talking to Pius Dempa, a political analyst, a lawyer, and an indigene of Taraba State, who has provided us perspective from these three different caps that he wears, but whether as an analyst, a lawyer, or a citizen, on the crisis rocking the All Progressive Congress in Taraba State with regards to the just concluded primaries that had ushered in, if you like, a governorship candidate, gubernatorial candidate. We look forward to how this crisis unfolds and how this is eventually settled among other contending members of the party. We thank you for finding time to be with us in the studio today. This is where we will draw the curtain on this conversation with you. Do have a nice day. We will take a short breather. When we return, the program continues. Thank you for joining us. If you have stayed with us all morning, it's been the morning show on Daybreak Trust Television. We have served you very compelling and interesting stories this morning and analyst perspective on issues that borders on our national polity. If you're just joining us and you have missed out on any important part, please do well to visit our social media handles on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, to catch up on YouTube, to catch up on all the interesting developments today and find time to remain with us for all the other interesting programs that we would serve you on this station as the day continue to unfold. It's been a pleasure riding with you this morning. I am Sunday Michael Ogu.
And I'm Dashan Hussein Ausman. Thank you so much for watching.